The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
Today is Thursday. It is August 20th, 2020. Thanks so much for joining me. This has been a major breaking news day. The show is late because almost every hour on the hour, there was a major story that broke. I want to begin with probably the most important headline. There were some more headlines that were bigger, but the most important headline is that there are 1.1 million new unemployment claims as of today. That is 1.1 million more Americans who do not have income. And the fact that our Congress, our Senate, our leaders are basically on vacation until Labor Day, that no decision has been made. Nothing has been done to help the American people. And we have 1.1 million more claims in a single week. Last week, a lot of reporters and journalists and outlets made a big deal about the unemployment number, the new claims being below 1 million as some type of symbol that we were going back, that the economy was trying to recover. But we are still, quite honestly, still at the beginning of this pandemic. And the fact that we have leaders who are so derelict in their duty that they are not doing anything to help the now probably 45 million Americans who are unemployed. And for every person that's unemployed, that represents a family of people who no longer have income in their household. And for a good portion of those, that represents the end of their health care, because in America, we have this sadistic setup where we tie a person's health care access to their jobs. And so now you have millions of people across this country. Before this update, there was 5.4 million people who had lost their health care since the pandemic. So now you probably have added another 250 to 500,000 people who lost health care. And again, those are not just the individuals, the families that they were taking care of. So it's just not the individuals, but you have entire households that don't have income. And underneath everything that's going on, like, this is why I'm leading with this story, because this is the most important headline. There's a lot of more salacious and a lot of more exciting headlines today. But this one is the one that matters, because behind every single one of those numbers, there's still more people who could not get approved through these archaic unemployment systems that are set up on a state by state level. The state of Florida has a system that's so antiquated that it's literally designed to make sure that it minimizes the number of people who can get approved for unemployment. So if there's 1.1 million who are able to successfully apply for unemployment, there's probably another 500,000 more that were not able to get through the system. And behind every single number, there is a family that is currently under duress and panicked because they don't know what to do. They don't know how they're going to feed their kids during this pandemic. They do not know how they're going to survive. And the federal government has failed them. Again, the federal government and the state governments have failed them. Politicians from both parties have failed them because not enough has been done. And in fact, there's nothing currently being done. They gave Americans $1,200. $1,200 to last through the entirety of this pandemic. Meanwhile, giving Wall Street and giving the banks and giving corporations, millionaires and billionaires, gave them a total of trillions of dollars to survive this pandemic. That's why Wall Street and the markets can be performing so good and the rest of us are struggling to survive. And I just want you to, we say these numbers, 1.1 million people who are now unemployed, more that are unemployed as a result of this week. But I want you to just honestly take in consideration. I don't know if you've ever been on unemployment. I have. I don't know if you've ever been on unemployment as an adult with children. I have. That is a lot. That is such a traumatic and stressful situation, even in the best of times. But we are in a pandemic. So there are about 45 million Americans who have no income. They cannot get a job because nobody is hiring. We are in a pandemic. And even if they could get a job, we should not be sending people back out into this pandemic. So you have 45 million Americans who are struggling to survive right now, today. And what are our politicians doing. They are playing politics as usual, and they're taking care of Wall Street while the rest of us struggle to survive.
Let's go to this next story. This is the major headline from today. Steve Bannon, the former chief strategist for the White House for Donald Trump, significant player on the campaign, and he had a top aide role in the White House for Donald Trump. He has been indicted. He has been indicted on fraud charges. I want to read a statement from acting U.S. Attorney Audrey Strauss. She said, as alleged, the defendants defrauded hundreds of thousands of donors, capitalizing on their interest in funding a border wall to raise millions of dollars under the false pretense that all of that money would be spent on construction, while repeatedly assuring donors that Brian Kolfage, the founder and public face of We Build the Wall, would not be paid a cent. The defendants secretly schemed to pass hundreds of thousands of dollars to Kolfage, which he used to fund his lavish lifestyle. Then she went on to thank the investigators a part of this. Now, Brian Kolfage, I'll put an image on your screen. He is a former veteran who was behind this entire idea. Steve Bannon got on board, and he was indicted because he has received something like $1 million to himself personally that he used from this campaign. On your screen, you can see that this campaign on GoFundMe raised $20 million. $20 million in 25 days, and they raised that from 337,000 conservatives. I remember this campaign. I remember the campaign well because GoFundMe eventually shut it down because they were concerned of how the money was going to be spent. Were they going to actually be able to make good on their promises? But in fact, it looks like they never intended to make good on their promises, which is like no duh. It's hilarious because it is indicative of how committed conservatives are to their racism and to their bigotry. They will open up their checkbooks, and Brian Kolfage and Steve Bannon, they knew this. They got 337,000 people to donate to this campaign, because they knew there was a level of commitment to bigotry in this country that they could profit off of, and that ignorance, that bigotry really parallels and is synonymous with ignorance, because you got to be a damn fool. You got to be a damn fool to actually believe that they were going to be able to actually implement this and that they were not going to be siphoning money off the top. Just morons. Now, I want to play a clip. President Donald Trump, he distanced himself from his number one chief strategist, the man who was most responsible for Donald Trump being in the White House, Steve Bannon. Donald Trump distanced himself from him, as well as found a way to blame President Obama. I shit you not. Take a listen in.
Thank you very much.
Mr. President, what's your reaction to the indictment of your former campaign aide, Steve Bannon?
Well, I feel very badly. I haven't been dealing with him for a long period of time, as most of the people in this room know. He was involved in our campaign. He worked for Goldman Sachs. He worked for a lot of companies, but he was involved likewise in our campaign and for a small part of the administration very early on. I haven't been dealing with him at all. I know nothing about the project other than when I read about it, I didn't like it. I said, this is for government. This isn't for private people. And it sounded to me like showboating, and I think I let my opinion be very strongly stated at the time. I didn't like it. It was showboating and maybe looking for funds, but you'll have to see what happens. I think it's a very sad thing for Mr. Bannon. I think it's surprising, but this was something, as you know, just by reading social media and by reading whatever it is and by speaking to Mike and all of them, I didn't like that project. I thought that was a project that was being done for showboating reasons. I don't know that he was in charge. I didn't know any of the other people either. But it's sad. It's very sad.
Respectfully, sir, it's not just Steve Bannon. It's Roger Stone. It's Michael Flynn. It's Rick Gates, Paul Manafort, Michael Cohen. What's it say about your judgment that these are the kind of people
Well,
that
I
you're
have
affiliated
no idea.
with, and the culture of lawlessness around people who
Well,
were
no, there was
involved in the
great
leadership of your
lawlessness in the
campaign?
Obama administration. They spied on our campaign illegally. And if you look at all of the things and all of the scandals they had tremendous lawlessness. But I know nothing about, I was not involved in the project. I have no idea who was. But I can tell you, I didn't know the people, the three people that were talked about were people that I did not know. I don't believe I ever met them. I don't think that should be a privately financed wall. I don't.
Okay. Absolutely ridiculous, but 100% expected. Had full expectation that Donald Trump was going to find a way to prevaricate his way around this, right? And to downplay him, to downplay Steve Bannon as somebody who just played a little role in the White House for a little bit of time. No, Steve Bannon was Donald Trump's ace Boone Coon. Steve Bannon is literally the man who came up with the strategy that got Donald Trump to the White House. Steve Bannon is the man behind, honestly, if you want to know who's pulling the levers of this resurgence in white supremacy in this country, it is Steve Bannon. Donald Trump is just Steve Bannon's useful idiot. Steve Bannon is also a very powerfully connected, powerful in himself and wealthy man. And so this is a major deal to see him potentially go down. But here's how it's going to play out. Donald Trump is going to insert himself into this process and attempt to obstruct justice because he knows he can count on his attorney general to do whatever he wants because his attorney general is in the bag. That's number one. And if it becomes a case that Steve Bannon takes a plea deal, and is found guilty, Donald Trump always has his Trump card in his back pocket because he has been pardoning all of his friends. He has been making sure that he takes care of the people who are loyal to him. OK, so this doesn't mean that there's going to be any type of justice. We have to see how this plays out. But it should show you that there's a level of criminality in this White House that goes beyond anything we have seen in our lifetime. This is not to say that other administrations were good. It's not to say that they were innocent of anything, but the level of criminality and the self-enrichment and the fleecing of America. I mean, it is to the point of absurdity. We could literally take any single issue, any single day, and Donald Trump's administration has committed a crime that is to the level of impeachment. But we have degraded our institutions in this country so much so to the point where there is no one who can or is willing to hold Donald Trump accountable. This is important. I want to stress something because as I reported on this earlier, someone in the comment sections, they were like, so what? I'm still poor. I'm still poor and I still can't pay my bills. I understand that. But let me tell you why this is important, because it represents the degradation of our institutions, the institutions that we would use to improve this country. So unless somebody is saying none of this matters because I mean, what are we suggesting? That we should just let all of our institutions burn to the ground and then that will fix your problem? No. We have to protect these institutions because right now they are the vehicle through which we can solve all of our other problems. The number one problem we're facing right now today is that our institutions have been taken hostage, not just by Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the extreme example of what happens to American institutions when bad politicians get in there, when people who are going into these offices for the purposes of enriching themselves, right? He's just the extreme example. But we have had plenty of other leaders who have taken hold of institutions and have not used those institutions for our good. And why this matters so much is that we're far beyond politicians just getting in there and helping out Wall Street. We're at the point where politicians are getting in there and destroying the institutions to enrich themselves personally. And once we cross that threshold, there is no going back to patch it up and fix it up because American democracy is too fragile. American democracy is too fragile for us to turn a blind eye to the level of criminality that Donald Trump has brought to our American institutions. This doesn't absolve any other president of anything, but it should bring importance to your mind. It should show you how important it is that we address this and we get rid of it. Get rid of it. Okay. Welcome back, everybody. I want to talk about the race that I've been watching here in Massachusetts. I've been covering the race here in Massachusetts with Ed Markey and Joe Kennedy III. And I just want to update everyone that the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, the one who really slammed anybody who would run a primary against an incumbent. Matter of fact, there is I know for a fact that if you primary somebody, a Democrat, as someone who is in power, an incumbent, and you are a consulting firm and you work on that campaign, you get blacklisted. Okay. And this is because they try to discourage anyone primarying somebody who's currently in Congress. Now, that didn't, I'm going to take my time with this one because when you see hypocrisy, you point it out and you run it in the ground. The thing that bothers me about this is while they have been blacklisting consulting firms that are working with people who primary incumbents, they went ahead and primaried Ilhan Omar. They primaried Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Rashida Tlaib. Do you see Tlaib? You see the trend here? They're primarying progressives. Well, Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, decided to endorse someone who was primarying an incumbent, Ed Markey. Joe Kennedy III is, obviously he's related to the Kennedys. I've covered him before. He's a cornball. I don't even really have to get to the politics. His politics are like from the 90s. He's against the legalization of marijuana to begin with, when the city of Boston already decriminalized marijuana. You could smoke right with the police officers and, well, not with them, but they could pass you by and just keep on smoking. Don't ask me how I know. The point is that Joe Kennedy III is running a campaign that is antiquated, and he's running on his legacy. He's running on the fact that he's related to the Kennedy, that he is a Kennedy. He is not nearly as progressive as Ed Markey. Not nearly concerned about the working people of this country as Ed Markey. And that's why Nancy Pelosi endorsed him, because this Democratic Party is not committed to working people, period, end of conversation. The hypocrisy, though, the hypocrisy of Nancy Pelosi to come out here and endorse Joe Kennedy III against somebody who has been working in the Senate across the hall from the House, has been working on behalf of Democratic politics in general, right? He's been a good Democrat, but he's also been a good Democrat for working people, which is two totally different things if you've been following politics any amount of time. So anyway, according to the Boston Globe, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is endorsing Representative Joseph P. Kennedy III in his primary challenge of incumbent Senator Edward J. Markey, a boost for the challenger in what polls suggest is a neck-and-neck race. And here's what she said. Never before have times demanded we elect courageous leaders as today, and that is why I'm proud to endorse Joe Kennedy for Senate. And actually, there's a video here. So let's listen to Nancy Pelosi's hypocrisy from her own mouth.
Never before have the times demanded we elect courageous leaders as today, and that is why I'm proud to endorse Joe Kennedy for Senate. In 2018, when we took back the House, Joe campaigned across America to make that victory possible. He knows that to achieve progressive change, you must be on the front lines leading movements of people. Massachusetts and America need Joe Kennedy's courage and leadership in the Senate to fight for the change we need. Thank you.
Yeah, you're not welcome. Thank you, my ass. No. The hypocrisy is enough to make you vomit. Primary everybody. Hashtag primary everybody. And if you're good, you stay. If you're not, you're gone. Right? Because all of this blacklisting people because they dare to primary an incumbent, that's got to end. Because you see, the Democratic establishment will absolutely primary you if they don't like your particular brand of Democratic politics. And the brand of politics they don't like are people who fight for working people. Let's just keep it clear. They do not like people who come up there and fight on behalf of working people. That's why they primaried AOC, but she dominated and won. That's why they primaried Ilhan Omar. but she dominated and won. That's why they primaried Rashida Tlaib. But she dominated and won. And we're going to help Ed Markey win. At least I am. I don't know what you're going to do, but I'm going to help him win. If we're going to primary anybody, primary everybody. And see how many people from the establishment, the misleadership class, the black misleadership class, there's a lot of good, I can name a couple that I used to admire. Black politicians from the community that I used to admire, right? Because, they were the distinguished congressmen from the 19th or the 20th district, depending on which year you lived in Florida. I love Alcee Hastings. Primary him. Jim Clyburn, South Carolina. Primary him. Primary everybody. And watch a new generation of politicians. Hell, I might get in on some of this primary business, but I like being on the outside, being a rabble rouser. But seriously, we need to get these people out of office because they will turn on you and they will ensure that you yourself get primaried while telling everyone else not to primary because that's not what we want to do. We don't want to do that. And here she is endorsing someone primarying a good Democrat. I mean, he's worked with the Democrats. And he's been a good progressive in that he's been fighting on behalf of working people. Kiss our asses, collective asses, Nancy Pelosi. We're primarying everybody.
Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and get twice the content and unfiltered interviews without any of the commercial interruptions.
And here we go. At this point in every single episode, I'd like to take a minute to thank the people who make the show possible, our patrons. Very special welcome to Paige. Thank you for becoming a patron. Stephanie, thank you for becoming a patron. Matthew Dooley, thank you for becoming a patron. Angry Panda, thank you for becoming a patron. Sulihan, thank you for becoming a patron. Wait a minute, everybody, just bop your head. Aros, Claudia Aros, thank you for becoming a patron. Amanda Fairholt, thank you for becoming a patron. Tony Fedora, Tamara Tompkins, thank you for becoming patrons. You too can become a part of this prestigious and prodigious patron family by going to patreon.com/The BPD Show, where you get twice the content, uncut, unfiltered interviews, none of the commercial interruptions, and you give me the ability to speak truth to power, whether the powerful like it or not. Bop with it.
Welcome back to The Benjamin Dixon Show.
Yep.
Visit us online at thebenjamindixonshow.com.
Come on. Let's go. All right. Now from critiquing and correctly criticizing Nancy Pelosi, I want to bring up something that she potentially is doing right. Potentially. She had an interview. She spoke with the Postmaster General, Louis DeJoy, who has been undermining the post office since he got in position appointed by Donald Trump. He was a major donor to Donald Trump's campaign. He became the Postmaster General. And since he has been undermining, he has been implementing policies that has brought the efficiency of the USPS to a halt. I mean, deliveries are coming late. Prescriptions are getting there late. People will potentially die because of his decisions. And these decisions are being made to help Donald Trump win re-election because the majority of America is going to use mail-in ballots. All right. Everybody understands the score, and hopefully you've been brought up to date. Yesterday, we reported on this show that the Postmaster General made an announcement that he was going to halt every single thing that all these initiatives that they have been undertaking. I digress. We said yesterday that it's easy to stop something when the damage has already been done. And the real question was, is he going to reverse any of the things that he did? And in the interview that he spoke with in the meeting that he had with Nancy Pelosi, he outright said that they were not going to undo the things that they already did. I'm going to read a quote. The Postmaster General frankly admitted that he had no intention of replacing the sorting machines, blue mailboxes, and other key mail infrastructure that have been removed, and that plans for adequate overtime
which is critical for the timely delivery of mail, are not in the works. So there you have it. What he said yesterday, or what he said the day before, rather, I believe he said that on Tuesday, was nothing but a deflection to try to get the heat off of him. The fact of the matter is he did that because he wanted to avoid being called before Congress. And now I think more than ever, he needs to be called before Congress. He needs to be subpoenaed. It should not be optional. And if he chooses to not come before Congress, then he needs to be held in contempt of Congress and thrown into a cell until he testifies. Because what he is doing is 100% undermining our democracy. And it's a shame that our democracy, the last line of our defense, right? The very last line of defense for our democracy has come down to the post office. A lot of people like to say this on Twitter and different platforms, and to a certain extent, I agree. And to a certain degree, I disagree. Here's what they say. You can't vote fascism out. There's some truth to that, because Donald Trump is demonstrating that once you have that power, you can manipulate that power to maintain that power, right? But we do have this last line of defense, which is the election that's coming up. And by them trying to infringe upon it, it makes it seem like that statement is true. But if we can stop him dead in his tracks, if we can overcome the barrier that they're placing in front of us to get rid of Donald Trump, then we can successfully get rid of him. Now, the other option is, well, hell, I mean, we're all nice and dressed up. I'm wearing by the way, I'm wearing my suit that I wore at my wedding. You know, I done got back in that suit. So we all nice and clean, but we could take this off, man. Like, there's a lot of civilized people out there who would love to operate within this system and within these institutions to resolve our issues. But if you don't want us to resolve our issues through the system, then we can become uncivilized. So you need to choose how you want to do this, Postmaster General and Donald Trump. If you really think that the way you want this country to proceed is by violating and undoing our ability to rule by a majority rule, or even hell, by the Electoral College for that matter, which is something that was antiquated and needs to be done away with. But if you're trying to infringe upon our ability to vote your ass out of office, then you leave us no option than to go with the principle that I see everywhere, that I try to reject so that we can maintain our civility. And that is, you can't vote fascism out. Well, how else do you think we're going to get it out if we don't do it through voting, my man? All right. Sorry about that last segment, but that really sends me, man. That really sends me, because they don't understand how tenuous. I mean, I intend to talk about something else, but this is really on me, man. Like, they don't understand how tenuous this thing really is, how fragile this democracy really is. They don't understand that there's a big part of us that you know, we're just hanging on by a thread, my dude. You know, people need to understand that for all of this talk of weak liberals, you really haven't met the progressives then. You really haven't met the people who are just waiting for the revolution to pop off, like waiting. Like, I wish you would put us in a situation where the thing has to really pop off for real. There's a lot of people like that. And for me, I'm constantly reminding myself that I prefer, my personal preference is to be in the backyard, you know, barbecuing while my kids jump on the trampoline. But if they put us in a position where they are suspending democracy for the ego of one megalomaniac, what other option do we have? See, when you put people and their back is up against the wall, when someone's back is up against the wall, how do you expect them to respond? I think they have an expectation that people would simply cower in fear before a fascistic government. Some people will, but the vast majority of us, we will rebel against a system that is oppressive in that fashion, that suspends with the illusion of democracy. Like, I'm not going to be one here to sit here and tell you that we have the most robust example of freedom in this country. In fact, my entire Patron episode yesterday was about how unfree we really are in the United States of America. But when you become so arrogant, that you feel like you have the right to suspend the appearance of democracy, yeah, you're going to have a problem on your hand. In the Patrons episode, I'm going to talk about QAnon and the president of the United States basically endorsing them, cozying up to them. And because these are all reasons why we absolutely, as much as I don't like Joe Biden, whatever, that's immaterial at this point. We've got to get rid of Donald Trump because not only is he trying to enshrine himself as a dictator in this country, he is fomenting the absolute worst in society, not just white supremacy and racism, but also conspiracy theory and violence. And Donald Trump has to go. So go to patreon.com/the BPD show to get the other half of the show. Everyone else, thank you for being a beautiful audience. I'll see you next time.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com/the BPD show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.